Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at the Classic Collection, and the Classic Collection offers us lots of new and interesting cards to build new and exciting decks with. And in today's deck profile video, I'm going to be covering the Yellow Angels Recovery deck. So Angels in the Classic Collection is focused around recovering and trying to keep your security count as high as you possibly can to take advantage of various different abilities. And, well, I built the deck centered around that theme, so it's just a very interesting control-esque style deck where we're just trying to keep our security as healthy as we possibly can and try to chip the opponent out. So without further ado, on to the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitamas, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Upamon. So Upamon is still just one of the best, if not the best, generic Digitama that we have to be working with. And what Upamon is doing is it has a nice inheritable ability of when attacking once per turn. If you have 3 or fewer cards in your security, then we get to draw 1 card. So being at 3 or fewer cards in our security isn't necessarily the hardest thing to do if we're trying to set it up ourselves, or if we just wait long enough, then the opponent will do it for us. So that's just what's making Upamon really, really good, on top of the fact that it's one of the easiest ways that we have to draw cards in the deck. So that way we could try to dig through our deck and find the pieces and cards that we need in order to progress our game plan. And then the 5th Digitama could really be anything you want it to be. I'm just going to be running 1 copy of Koromon because it has the same type of ability as Upamon. So the two pair very nicely with each other because of that, and the big difference between Upamon and Koromon is that instead of drawing a card when we're at 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we're going to be reducing the opponent's Digimon by 1000 DP, adding a little bit of a control aspect to what the deck can do. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Salamon. So this is the BT02 version of Salamon, and this Salamon is in the deck just to try to keep our security count as high as we possibly can. So it has a nice on-delete ability that states where if we're at 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to recover 1. So that way we could try to keep our security as high as we possibly can for our various abilities. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Starmons. So Starmons is just an absolutely insane card for any yellow deck to be playing with because it's just that good of a rookie to use. So what this card is stating is it has an on-play ability. For each Digimon you have in play, then one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 1000 DP. So the larger field that you have, the stronger this card gets. And that's just pretty good because for a rookie having some really powerful removal abilities, it's just a very easy card to use as a result. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Patamon. So this is the brand new classic Patamon, and what this Patamon is doing is it's acting as the deck's dedicated digger. So what this Patamon's digging for is we get to check the top 4 cards of our deck and add 1 Digimon with Angel, Archangel, or 3 Great Angel in its traits from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So this has a lot of potential targets because a lot of the cards that we're running are either Angels, Archangels, or 3 Great Angels. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Pulsemon. So Pulsemon is still just one of the best rookies that we have to be playing with because his on-play ability is still just that good. His on-play ability states that if we have 3 or more cards in our security, then we get to draw 1 card. If we have 3 or less cards in our security, we get to gain a memory. And if we're at exactly 3, then we get both effects. So this is just really, really powerful. Most of the time we're using this card just to draw a card, but if we do, on the off chance am able to make him cheaper to hard play, then that's just icing on the cake. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Turuiemon. So Turuiemon, we're really only using this card just because it is a tempo efficient card, just because it evos for 1. The 6000 DP is nice just because it makes him a little bit stronger than most of the other champions we're going to be playing around with, but we only care about evoing him for 1 to try to climb the stages as quickly as we possibly can with. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Piddomon. So Piddomon is going to be the deck's dedicated blocker. If you wanted to, you could use Unimon instead, but I'm choosing to run Piddomon for a slew of different reasons. The first big reason is the fact that it is more tempo efficient than Unimon, so I don't even have to use this card as a blocker if I don't need to, and I could just quickly use it to evo into our higher stages with. And then on top of that, it also is an angel, so that means that Patamon could search for it. So those are the two big reasons why I'm using this card over Unimon, even though Unimon is probably a stronger blocker and has a higher chance of living and can block up more different Digimon than what Piddomon can. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Wizardmon. So Wizardmon is a pretty decent Digimon for this deck because he has this nice inheritable ability where during your turn, once per turn, when a card is removed from your security stack, then we get to gain 1 memory. So we do have a couple of cards, and we could play with a couple of cards that are actively reducing our own security stack, so that way we could put ourselves into our own specific security thresholds and keep ourselves within that security threshold because of all of the healing that we have for our various different abilities, and Wizardmon is a great card to reward us for removing our own security cards by allowing us to gain a memory, so that way we can make our plays as efficient as we possibly can when we're using specific cards. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Angemon. So this is the brand new classic version of Angemon, and this Angemon is pretty good for his inheritable ability, where it's a when attacking once per turn. If you have 3 or more cards in your security, then this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP until the end of the opponent's next turn. So that's really important to note because it's not just your generic buff during your turn, it also proceeds and extends to the opponent's turn, making your Digimon a little bit more tanky and a little bit harder to interact with for the opponent, because that buff will not only persist through evolution, but that buff will also persist to the opponent's turn as well. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Angewomon. So this is the BT03 version of Angewomon, and this Angewomon is still that good of a card to run because, well, its 2 abilities are just super strong. So the ability native to it is a when Digivolving ability, one of your opponent's Digimon gets security attack -2. This is alright because it allows the opponent's Digimon to get this debuff so that way it can't break your security. So it's essentially a form of healing. It's more of a stall tactic than anything, but that's still kind of what you want because you just don't want your security to be broken as often as you want. So that way you could have your abilities be online and trigger and keep your security as healthy as possible. And then what you're really trying to use this card for is her inheritable ability, where it's a when attacking, not limited to once per turn. If you have 3 or fewer cards in your security, then you get to play 1 yellow level 3 Digimon from your hand for free. So this just allows us to easily use our on-play abilities on all of our low-level Digimon and try to get them out as efficiently as we possibly can and try to swarm the field with, making Angewomon just a very fantastic card to be using. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Magna Angemon. So Magna Angemon is another really powerful card for this deck to be playing around with because of all of the synergy that this card has with what the deck is trying to do. So the first big thing is he has 2 abilities, one native to him, one inheritable. The ability native to him is a when attacking ability. If we have 3 or more cards in our security, then this Digimon gets plus 4000 DP until the end of the opponent's next turn. So this is really, really powerful because it just means we're able to swing with Magna Angemon and boost himself up to 11. And then if we have the Angemon underneath him, then he could boost himself up to 12. So that's a level 5 swinging for 12k, which is just very, very powerful to do, on top of the fact that the buffs will persist through evolution and through the opponent's turn, making whatever Mega we're Digivolving into have that DP boost carry over to them. So that's really, really powerful, allowing us to actually start thinking about swinging with our level 5s, which is actually pretty important. And then on top of that, he has a nice inheritable ability where during your turn, once per turn, when a card is added to your security stack, then you get to gain 1 memory. So every time we're going to be recovering during our turn, at least the first time, we're going to be gaining a memory back, so it could make certain cards more efficient to use and more efficient to play as a result. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Angewomon. So this is the brand new classic version of Angewomon, and this Angewomon is another really good card for the deck because it's adding some control elements to what the deck is trying to do. So she has a when attacking ability native to her, where if we have 3 or more cards in our security, then one of the opponent's Digimon and all of the opponent's security Digimon get minus 3000 DP for the turn. So this is really, really powerful, again, as another card you want to try to swing with as a level 5, so that way you can not only try to delete the opponent's low-level Digimon, but reduce the Digimon's DP in their security stack, making it easier for her to live, essentially making her around 10k when she's swinging into the security, which is still pretty strong for a level 5 to swing into the security with. And then her inheritable ability states that during your turn, once per turn, when a card is added to your security stack, then one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 2000 DP. So there's that interaction where we also want to try to add cards into our security to add more removal or control elements to what the deck is trying to do. So ideally what you're going to do with her is you're going to swing into the opponent's security, then you're going to reduce one of the opponent's Digimon's DP down, then you're going to Digivolve, hopefully recover through that Digivolution, and then reduce the DP of the opponent's Digimon even more. So that's just looking to be like a pretty easy and powerful combo, and we have lots of megas that we could do to make the best use out of Angewomon with. Next, onto the megas, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Seraphimon. So Seraphimon is a card that we saw all the way back in BT01 and saw some light play here and there, but nothing too extensive. But now that we have a more recovery and angel-focused deck that's trying to keep our security as healthy as possible, that's making this Seraphimon look even better to use than he did before. So what this Seraphimon is doing is that he has 2 abilities. He has a when Digivolving ability where we just get to recover 1. So that's really, really powerful because we could essentially use this to try to keep our security as healthy as possible and keep us within a particular security threshold for our various abilities to trigger. And then on top of that, he has a secondary ability where during your turn, if you have 3 or more cards in your security, then this Digimon gains security tech +1. So that's really powerful because, again, we could use this ability to try to aggress onto the opponent's security because our security is healthy and to do multiple security checks, trying to actually deal as much damage as we possibly can because yellow is a bit of a slower color and it doesn't have a whole lot of instances of security tech plus. So we could use the fact that this Seraphimon has security tech plus to apply lots of pressure onto the opponent. So that's what's making this card really, really good, on top of the fact that we have just lots of cards that this card can interact with. So this card can interact with the new Magna Angemon to gain a memory back when we Digivolve into him, making him essentially Evo for 2 instead of 3. We could use the Angewomon from the Classic Collection to reduce the opponent's DP when we Digivolve into this card. Like, there's just a lot of good synergy with what this card is doing and all of the other cards in the deck. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Seraphimon. So this is the classic version of Seraphimon, and this Seraphimon is another really powerful card to be using because of all of its synergies and interactions with the deck. So what this card is doing is it has, well, 2 abilities. The first is a when Digivolving ability, we get to recover 1, same as the old Seraphimon. That's just pretty good because we could pair this up with all of our cards for those same types of synergies. And then on top of that, it has an ability that happens during the opponent's turn, where during the opponent's turn, while this card is suspended, all of your security Digimon get plus 5000 DP. So this is going to be DP boosting your security Digimon, making whatever in your security even more threatening than it normally is. Which isn't a bad thing because it'll have a high chance of trying to delete the opponent's Digimon, which is a good thing because then we're going to try to recover that and keep our security as healthy while getting rid of the opponent's Digimon. So this Seraphimon is pretty good for that, and we do actually want to Digivolve this Digimon suspended because of how Magna Angemon wants to work, so that's kind of like the whole intended synergy, and it's just a very decent card to be using because of that. And then the last level 6 of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Magnadramon. So this is the brand new classic version of Magnadramon, and this card is a pretty decent card to be using in the deck because of, well, all of its synergies, because yellow is just a very high synergy color. So what this card is doing is that she has 2 abilities of her own. Her first ability is a when Digivolving ability. We may trash the top card of our security stack to unsuspend this Digimon. So that's kind of like the whole little intended synergy with Wizardmon, is Wizardmon is going to also gain us a memory back, making Magnadramon even more efficient to Digivolve into because of that combo pair. And then on top of that, unsuspending this Digimon means that we could swing again with it. So we actually do want to think about attacking with our level 5s, and then Magnadramon will just allow us to Digivolve and actually be able to attack with our level 6. So that's some pretty good synergy there. And then on top of that, it has a nice when attacking ability once per turn. If we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we're going to be recovering 1. So this is just a recursive recovery type of ability that's very similar to Turuiemon, except it's actually recovering us a card instead of putting a card from our trash into our security, but it's still a very solid ability to have nonetheless, just to try to keep our security as healthy as we humanly possibly can. And then the last mega of the deck and only level 7 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Chaosman Volderarm. So this is just your stereotypical level 7. It's more of an emergency button rather than something we actually want to actively Digivolve into. So we do kind of want to stay on our level 6s for as long as we possibly can. And then when a threat comes onto the field that we can't deal with, that's when we're usually going to try to Digivolve into Chaosman Volderarm to clean it up. So what this card is doing is it has a very powerful when Digivolving ability, where we get to activate the following effect twice of reducing one of the opponent's Digimon by 7,000 DP for the turn. So you could use this to either delete 2 potential Digimon or 1 big Digimon. So the flexibility on how we could utilize its removal ability is very, very strong. On top of the fact that we do have some ways to reduce the opponent's DP to make this ability even stronger because DP reduction does stack. And then on top of that, it has a nice on-delete ability. That's a little bit annoying for the opponent to deal with because its on-delete ability states that we get to gain 3 memory. So whether it's deleted during our turn, it means that we get to use that 3 memory to make some powerful follow-up plays, or if it's deleted during the opponent's turn, it means we're effectively taking away 3 of their memory, so it can limit some of the actions that the opponent can take. So this is just a very good card to be playing with overall, and it's Yellow's current only level 7 to be playing with actually. Next, on to the options, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Wyvern's Breath. So this is basically the Gaia Force of the deck. So what this card is doing is it has the main ability to reduce one of the opponent's Digimon's DP by 15,000. So that's just a huge amount of DP to be reduced all at once. So it's acting very similar to Volderarm, where we're just using this card to just delete the opponent's high-level Digimon that we can't deal with otherwise. And then it has the very powerful security ability of activating its main. So when it's checked in the security, it's going to be a huge threat because we're going to, well, delete one of the opponent's Digimon because of Wyvern's Breath. And then the last option card up for the deck is going to be 2 copies of Yellow Memory Boost. So Yellow Memory Boost is a really good consistency tool for the deck just because its main ability states that we get to reveal the top 4 cards and add 1 yellow Digimon among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So it's just helping us dig out the parts and pieces that we need in order to continue or set up our game plan. And then on top of that, it also has the delay ability. So when this card is used, instead of going into the trash, it's going to go into the battle area, and you could use it at a later turn to gain 2 memory to make some power follow-up plays with. So it's just a very good card to be using for consistency and setups, and then on top of that, it has the security ability of being placed into the battle area, so at worst we could use the delay ability to gain 2 memory at a later turn. And then the last card of the deck and only tamer of the deck is going to be 3 copies of TK. So TK is probably the best yellow tamer that we have to be playing around with, especially for this deck, because of all of the different synergies and setups we could do to make TK even more efficient than he normally would be. So what this card is doing is he's going to be acting as the deck's dedicated memory fixing tamer, so if our memory is ever less than 3, he'll just always hard set us to 3, so that way we can make our plays as powerfully and efficiently as we possibly can, because we are basing a lot of our plays off of having 3 memory. So that's really important, on top of the fact that he has this very powerful on-play ability where we get to look at our security stack, reveal 1 card from among it, and add it into our hand, and then if that card is yellow, then we get to recover 1. So this is a very powerful card for this deck to be playing around with for this ability, because not only is it a consistency ability to try to dig out the pieces that we need from our security, which we're constantly putting new cards in our security, so it's never a bad card to use at any stage of the game. But it does have some unique interactions where it's interacting with taking cards out of our security and putting cards back into our security. So if we do have a Wizardmon Magna Angemon stack underneath our Mega, and we do play a TK, then we are going to be gaining the benefits from both of those cards. So the TK would pretty much cost us 2 memory at that point, which is just very, very powerful, especially since we're going to be recovering a lot and trying to take advantage of whatever cards are in our security to try to add back into our hand. So it's just a very good card and very high synergy card with the deck, and it could be a very efficient tamer to be playing, making him just the best tamer to use. And then on top of all of that, the deck still has room for customization, so you could do various different things with the deck depending on what you're trying to gain out of the deck. So you could think about playing the Salamon for some extra instances of DP reduction to try to add to the control elements and aspects of the deck. And then on top of that, you do have just a whole bunch of other very powerful generic level 3s. So Cutemon is a good anti-meta card. You could play Bushi-Agumon. You could play any other rookies with powerful on-play abilities. So there's just a lot that you could do with the rookies because Yellow's rookies are that strong. And then we even do have some inheritable abilities that are rewarding DP reduction in the form of Patamon, so you could at least try to gain a memory back when you're reducing the opponent's Digimon's DP. So you can make your DP reduction cards even more efficient than they normally would be. Then we do also have the Pulsemon line that we could try to take advantage of, not only reducing our own security, but being at a high security count. So the Bulkmon will also allow us to have extra instances of Security Attack Plus. Paired up with the Pulsemon, he could gain jamming for being at exactly 3, so that's just a very powerful pair of cards to be playing around with. And then for some more DP reduction, we do have the new Gatomon. So you could run the BT-003 version of Gatomon if you just want something a little bit more generic, but the Classic Collection Gatomon is a little bit stronger of a card to use with a condition attached to it. So its when attacking condition is if we have 3 or more cards in our security, where the other is just a generic when attacking, but the 2000 could actually matter versus the 1000 the older one gives. Then we also have the brand new Leomon from the Classic Collection to think about if we're just trying to consistently recover cards in our deck, because he has the security ability of allowing us to recover if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security. So that's just another really good ability to be playing around with to try to recover. Then we have a whole bunch of other cards to try to take advantage of the fact that you want to be at above 3 security. So we have the Promo Gatomon, which is a really good card for its DP boost potential. And then we also have this starter deck Angemon to also consider, because we could use this ability multiple times depending on our stack, because its when attacking ability isn't limited to once per turn, and if we have 4 or more cards in our security, then we get to gain 1 memory, which is pretty good, allowing us to make some really good follow-up plays with. Then you do have the BT-01 version of MagnaAngemon, which is still a very fantastic card because his on-play ability allows us to recover 1. So if we don't have any of our low-level Digimon, he's not a bad card to hard play and then Digivolve right up into our Megas. And we could have a very high security stack between MagnaAngemon and either of the Seraphimons, so that's very powerful there. On top of the fact that his inheritable ability is DP boosting our Digimon based on every 3 cards in our security. So if we have 6 or more cards in our security, then he could potentially get plus 2,000 or even 3,000 if you're lucky enough. And then on top of that, we also have Wargrowlmon to consider just for some more control aspects and elements for the deck to use, just because his Digiburst minus 4,000 is really good, on top of the fact that he also is DP boosting our Digimon as an inheritable ability by 1,000 for having 3 or fewer cards in our security. And then we do have other interesting cards to be playing around with for the deck in the form of Mastimon. So Mastimon is an angel, so she could be searched off of Patamon. She's actively reducing our own security. So that way we could trigger various abilities and try to put ourselves into that 3 security threshold. And on top of that, she's also rezzing a purple or yellow level 4 Digimon. So we could take advantage of on-play abilities or just get an extra body out because, well, we need the extra body. And then we also have /Angewomon to add to the overall control aspect of what we could possibly do with the deck. Unfortunately, /Angewomon is not an angel, so we can't search him, but that's okay. Neither is either of the Magnadramons, but the fact that it's still just a very powerful card means that we could still use it. And then on top of that, we do have Blinding Ray to, again, actively reduce cards from our own security for some benefit. So if we're at 0 security, then this card still triggers, and the ability just to gain 2 memory really quickly could surprise the opponent and make more powerful plays possible than what they would be expecting otherwise. And then we do have, again, cards that interact with the fact that we're taking away from our security, so it's not a bad card to be using as a result, depending on your build. And then if you don't feel like running yellow memory boost and you want to run something a little bit more powerful at a higher cost, then you could consider playing reinforced memory boost, because this is, well, basically allowing us to recover a card, fix our hand, and its delay ability gains us 3 memory versus 2 memory. And then if you do want to try to run an alternate tamer for the deck, you could run TK Inkari. I don't necessarily think this card's that great, because usually you want your security to be higher than your opponent, so the gaining the 2 memory is actually going to be a little bit more tricky in the deck to use. But you do have access to its other ability, where when your yellow Digimon are going to be swinging, then you could suspend this tamer to reduce one of the opponent's Digimon's DP by 1,000, adding to the overall control aspects of what the deck is trying to do. You could tailor-make the deck to try to keep yourself at that 3 security threshold, so at least for the early and mid stages of the game, then the memory gaining ability could possibly be online, but it's just an alternate tamer to think about, and I do still think that the original TK from BT01 is just the better tamer, but this is a good alternative. So for the most part, this is just my interpretation of what a Yellow Angels deck is going to be looking like come the Classic Collection, and I don't necessarily think this deck is that bad. Sure, it's not going to be Tier 1 Hyper Meta competitive, but the simple strategy of just recovering and chipping isn't a bad thing. Just because, well, it allows you to keep yourself in the game. Yellow has lots of control type elements you could take advantage of, and the fact that yellow actually can recover means that you could play a more longer or control style of game than what the opponent might want or might be anticipating. And I do think between all of the new Angel synergies and the different cards and tech and tools that you have access to, you could build and customize the deck to be actually very, very decent and at least be meta playable, even though it's not going to be Tier 1 competitive. So I think that this is going to be a very fun and interesting deck to be playing around with, and I do like all of the support that it's giving a lot of the older cards on top of a lot of the new cards that are giving it, well, the support. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.